What if financing a greener planet was as simple as sending a text? Or what if you could prove who you are without ever having to show your ID? It might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually the promise of a really revolutionary technology called distributed ledger technology.
All right, so let's get right into it. Here's our game plan. We're going to start with a massive global problem, then we'll dive into the tech that might just fix it, see where it's already working today, and finally, look at what it'll take to really make a part of our everyday lives.
So let's kick things off by framing the huge challenge that this technology is being aimed at, and that's climate change.
I mean, this is one of the biggest questions of our time, right? We know we need enormous investments in green infrastructure, but how do we actually get the money where it needs to go and do it fast enough to make a difference?
Well, here's why it's so incredibly difficult. A UN report basically lays it all out. The current system is kind of broken. You've got this fragmented value chain where developers, investors, and regulators are all pulling in different directions. There's almost no transparency, information is scattered all over the place, and you have so many stakeholders involved that it just gets incredibly complex. It's a mess.
And this is exactly why we need to find new solutions, and fast. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change basically gave us a deadline. The clock is absolutely ticking, and the old way of doing things just isn't going to cut it.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about the core technology that might offer a new path forward. We're going to break down what a digital ledger actually is, piece by piece.
At its very heart, it all starts with something simple. A ledger. It's just a record of who did what. For centuries we used paper ledgers. Today, they're mostly digital. But the idea is exactly the same. It's a notebook that tracks everything.
Now, traditionally, these ledgers are centralized. Think about your bank. It holds the one and only master copy of your account records. It's pretty efficient, sure, but if their system goes down, you're stuck. That's a single point of failure. A distributed ledger, or DLT, completely flips that on its head. Instead of one master copy, everybody in the network gets their own identical, synchronized copy. No single person or company is in charge, which makes the whole system unbelievably tough and transparent.
Now, this is where it gets really cool. On top of this distributed ledger, you can run something called a smart contract. And the best way to think about it is like a digital vending machine. I mean, a vending machine has rules, right? If you put in the right amount of money and press the right button, it has to give you that soda. There's no person to argue with, no negotiation. It's just a simple, automatic rule that executes.
So here's how that plays out. First, two people agree on the terms. Let's say, I'll pay you X dollars when this package arrives. That agreement gets turned into code. Second, something triggers it. Maybe the GPS on the package confirms it's been delivered. And bam, the third step happens automatically. The contract executes and releases the money. The absolute game changer here is that you don't need a bank or a lawyer or any other expensive middleman to make it happen.
Okay, so this technology sounds pretty powerful, right? But there's a catch, a big one. What happens when you've got all these different ledgers that need to talk to each other? This is the huge problem of interoperability. Right now, the blockchain world is kind of like a bunch of separate digital islands. Each one is its own little world, but they can't easily send messages or value between them. And if this technology is ever going to change something like global finance, we have to build bridges between those islands. Now, one of the most clever bridges being built is something called a hashed time-locked contract. It's a way to trade things across two different blockchains, even if you don't trust the other person. Think of it like this. Person A puts their item in a digital safe that can only be opened with a secret password. Person B sees the safe is locked and does the exact same thing on their blockchain. When person A uses the secret to unlock B's safe, that action automatically reveals the secret to B, who can then unlock A's safe. It's a totally secure, all-or-nothing kind of swap.
So, the upside here is huge. You completely remove the need for a third party, and you basically eliminate the risk that the other person won't hold up their end of the deal. But it's not a silver bullet. The two people still need to communicate outside of the system to set the deal up, and while the swap is happening, those assets are locked down and can't be used for anything else.
And this shows another brilliant way to build bridges, but this time for our personal data. It's called verifiable credentials. Here's how it works. An official issuer, say your university, gives you, the holder, a digital version of your degree. Then you can show that credential to a verifier, like a potential employer. But here's the magic part. You can prove you have the degree without revealing all the other personal data that might be attached to it. You prove what you need to prove and nothing more. You're in control.
All right, enough with the theory.
Let's talk about where this stuff is actually being tested and used out in the wild right now, because this is not just an idea anymore.
And check this out. This isn't some fringe concept. The big players, the central banks, are taking this very, very seriously. The Bank of Canada found that DLT could dramatically reduce risk in financial markets. Singapore proved you could reliably swap assets for payments across different systems. The European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan found it could make global payments way faster and cheaper. This is a huge signal that the world of finance is getting ready for a change.
But here's the most important part. This isn't just for the big banks. Not at all. This is about empowering everyday people. In China, this app called Ant Forest lets people earn green energy points for doing things like taking the bus instead of a car, and those points lead to actual trees being planted. In Australia, Power Ledger lets you sell the extra solar power from your roof directly to your next-door neighbor. It's a real community-owned power grid. These are incredible examples of how this tech can get millions of people directly involved in the green economy.
Okay, for any of this to truly take off and become a part of our daily lives, we need rules. We need a clear playbook. And that brings us to regulation and responsibility.
And you know what? That race to create the rules is already well underway. Way back in 2017, Arizona passed a law that made smart contracts legally valid. A year later, Malta went all in, creating a complete regulatory framework and becoming known as Blockchain Island. And Singapore has been a leader all along, creating clear rules for digital payments. This is happening globally, and it's a sure sign this technology is here to stay.
Because you see, building one of these applications isn't just about writing clever code. You have to answer some really tough practical questions first. Is it going to be a public network that anyone can join, or a private one just for a specific group of companies? What industry are you in, and what are the local laws? How much privacy do people need? And maybe the biggest one of all, what happens when something goes wrong? How do you solve a dispute when there's no single person in charge?
So when you boil it all down, that's what we're talking about here. Distributed ledgers, smart contracts, verifiable credentials, they're all just new tools in a toolkit. A toolkit for building systems based on transparency and trust that you can actually verify instead of just relying on powerful middlemen. The foundation is being laid right now. The real question is, what are we going to choose to build with it?